Carl here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life with another trip to our own personal desert island where we will be dropping off a duo this time. It was David Yates and Jamie Patterson of Glasgow, Scotland-based heavy metal band Nocturne Wulf. That's Wolf with a U as well. Get that right, W-U-L-F. Here the duo will be living out their remaining years alone and in peace except for each other, but to ensure they don't get bored or kill each other, because it's just a small island, we've allowed them to take certain items with them. Just enough room in our little dinghy to take either 3 games of books or a variation of both, 3 horror movies or 3 records, which of course you will have chosen. So, before we get to your first choices, how are you both doing? David, how are you doing? Jamie, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, we're good. Obviously, it's a strange old time, as we're all aware. But yeah, like on the whole, doing pretty well. Keeping myself busy with different things. So there's lots going on. Although we're not gigging, there's kind of lots going on Nocturne Wulf-wise that we're quite excited about. We've got a wee announcement, a wee new release that's coming up that people may have seen. That's quite exciting. And we're also working on lots of new other stuff. So we're trying to keep busy. Although we're gutted we're not out gigging, and there's a few things this year that we were looking forward to that have unfortunately been cancelled. But yeah, we're keeping positive. We're trying to focus on the good stuff, and we're hoping that what we're putting out is going to be entertaining for you guys. Is the kind of main thing. But yeah, on the whole, not too bad, all considered.
Yeah. Again, just to follow on from David, yeah, it's been a bit of a strange time for us all, I think. We've all had to adapt. Certainly in a band, it's quite weird because obviously it's a social thing and we can't be social. So it's been quite strange. But I think we've all been quite productive in our own ways. It's been good because we've been able to do a lot of writing. So that's really positive.
Yeah,
so
it's almost focused us in that way. Like before it'd be like, oh, we've got these gigs and all these other things, whereas now it's like, oh, we can actually, all we've got to focus on is that kind of thing, which is kind of cool time. We wouldn't normally get that. So yeah, it's silver linings to the madness.
When you've only got that one thing to do, then why not take advantage of it? Because obviously in music, not just ours, but music full stop, instant gratification, everybody moves on really quick. You know how important it is. You're a young band as well. You know how important it is to stay relevant and up to date. So if you just went, well, it's lockdown, we can't gig, so what's the point? Yeah. You'd be forgotten very quickly.
Totally.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. It's about staying relevant in a time where nobody can see you, which is quite strange. So, really, to be honest with you, social media has kind of been the saviour of bands. So that's really what we've kind of had to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one of the sort of major ups that you've sort of seen during this period is lockdown gigs and live streams. And what started off as sort of just people playing around, I think like Devin Townsend was the earliest one that really kind of a big artist that went, I'm going to do these things. And now you've got labels from the huge one, Nuclear Blast, Central Media, all doing these massive day-long shows and stuff like that. So people have certainly adapted.
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of cool. It's cool to see that as well. To see that like people are trying different things, new ideas to keep it relevant, keep it going, which is nice. Rather than the whole thing imploding, it's like, well, what can we do? What's going to work? Which is nice to see, isn't it? So.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been very, very different, very challenging, very strange, but also very interesting. I think what I was kind of thinking was like, what I was alluding to earlier is that this is a kind of time where bands can write the music, and then there'll be a kind of weird period where we can't gig, but we'll be able to meet up and rehearse, and then the gigging will come possibly towards the end of the year. So it's kind of been quite a nice transition, and we're just about to kind of, I think, go into the kind of the rehearsing stage of it, of all the kind of stuff we've got, and then we can do the gigging after. So it's been quite nice. It's been quite nice to be able to kind of like plan out what we're going to do, rather than usually when you're in a band, you're kind of like, oh, we've got all these gigs, oh right, we better get ready for that one. Whereas we've got quite a nice journey that we've looked at, and we've kind of planned it out. Because we're probably not the most organised of bands. So it's been quite nice to kind of have this time to kind of do that, which is really good.
It's funny, because obviously your focus is one specific thing, which is obviously the brand new single coming out in a bit. But from what you're suggesting is there's a lot more writing that's gone on for something else further down the line. Does that not then does that confuse your focus, where you know you've got to promote and you've got to build towards the new single, but then you've already got all this waiting in the wings?
I think that is always the eternal struggle with being in a band, is that your most recent single is always your best work. Or at least that's what you think. So it's very strange to think that we've got a single coming out, but we've also been kind of tinkering around with a lot of other stuff, and it's like, oh, that bit's really cool, oh, that's really good, because like bands are always desperate to push their new stuff. They always think that the new stuff, oh, this is gonna be so good, oh, it's gonna be great. So it's very weird. It is a bit weird having a single come out, but then we've got all this other stuff kind of floating around as well.
It's I literally, this last night I was doing an interview, and wonderful band Foxjaw, if you know them, British band Foxjaw. The new album, Golden Swan, I almost call it your single, Golden Swan, is out. It's out at the end of the week, but the point is, obviously the focus is that album. We're talking about album, we're discussing it and stuff like that. But he's so creative. All he's done is work on the next one. So it's trying to keep that. We're here to talk about that. It's not even out yet. You're supposed to be promoting that, not what's coming in the future.
You're totally right.
So during this entire period, is there anything individually, and I guess as a unit, as Nocturne Wulf, that you think you've kind of learned, a bit of a deep question really, but that you've learned about the band or yourselves as individuals and thought, well, okay, I like that and that's something I want to take forward?
Definitely. Well, we alluded to the organisation before. I think that's something that we've definitely learned that we can improve, and we've kind of forced ourselves to improve that just like during this time. But also, Jamie mentioned it again, but the social media thing, like me personally, I kind of stayed away from social media for a while, but like this has just shown us how important that is. And like in music now in general, it's kind of inherent. You kind of have to have that presence, which for good or for bad, there are a lot of positives for it. So yeah, it's been a bit of a steep learning curve for me, certainly using that. But I think it does have a lot of benefits to it. Sort of that engagement that you can get with the fans is sort of second to none, especially at the moment. Like we're not getting out to gigs, so that's kind of our only access to do that. So yeah, it's sort of a brilliant source of doing that, and I've kind of had to learn the ropes quickly. I'm still really bad. Like I can kind of do Facebook okay, but the rest are still a bit of a mystery to me. But I'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, Jamie.
No, I was just going to say, I totally agree. I think it's learning. You know, I mean, when myself and David have actually done bands for probably about 10 plus years, you know, in some capacity, you know, if we've kind of crossed paths and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's funny that even in the past kind of 10, 12 years, maybe even longer than that, maybe 14, it's weird to see how you used to go out, you used to gig, and then people come to the gig and that would be it. Whereas the whole social media thing is really quite bizarre. It seems to be where a lot of bands are really, really doing a lot of their work rather than going out and gigging. Does that make sense? You know, I mean, I'm not saying it's the modern way of doing things. It's how people do it. It's just quite a bizarre. It's good because it's great for fans because they can connect with their bands a lot more. Whereas, you know, back in the day, you heard about a band and you'd maybe be lucky to go on their website, and that would be about the extent of it. Where now you can find out everything about the band, the new singles coming out, you know, what all the band members, what their favourite bands are, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. And even you can message them as well. Yeah.
It's funny because ultimately, while you can talk those positively about those and how you want to use it, you have no choice. You have no choice but to adapt and find some way to live in this. I don't want to guess your ages, but I am from an era where the only way you heard a song was if it wasn't on the radio, which obviously with metal reason wasn't the case, was you bought a bloody CD, or going further back, a cassette, you know? I am of that specific age. So even the idea that you can go, you know, you can get your instant gratification, be a Spotify playlist, go to YouTube and hear 4 or 5 singles from an upcoming album before it's even released. Something that never was always more inherent in, say, pop music than it was, say, metal. You are forced to adapt, and if you're learning it, you have to. There's no ifs or buts, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like everything is so instant nowadays, isn't it? You just, as you say, click a button, everything's there.
Yeah.
Your songs are all there, your albums are there, and it's so fast paced, I think, is the thing. It's just like, everything's so quick. So yeah, you kind of have to sink or swim. And the good thing, like, I think we've learned as a band that we're all kind of like now dedicated to learning it and to doing it. Everyone's kind of stepped up, which is really good. So yeah.
Is there one specific member that you kind of like, okay, you're gonna do Facebook and I'm going to do Instagram?
we briefly, actually, funny you say that, we actually mentioned doing that very thing. So I think it was last week. I was talking to Jamie about it, but yeah, I think that's probably going to be like the best way to do it, I think, because certain people are doing better at doing different things as well, with better skills and doing different things, so it makes sense to kind of utilize that in each sort of area. So yeah, I think it's kind of the way to go, I guess. Especially for me, selfishly, because it means I don't have to learn the other ones.
I mean, I'm quite happy the fact that on your Instagram account, if you post a picture, you can link it to Facebook. And I think, well, that's kind of that's two done, isn't it?
That's it.
Does that count? I don't know.
It's a shame. You used to be able to, back over a year ago, you used to be able to link your Twitter as well. So Twitter would automatically post to Facebook too, but that's now gone. So that's unfortunately one thing you would have to do individually.
Oh no.
Everyone test.
Right, well, we're going to go to your first items then. Games, books, or a combination of both. Now,
right.
How do you want to do this? Do you want to do one each, and then someone just take the third one?
Yeah, could do that. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I mean, I think that I think David has kind of made a list, but I can obviously do a wee bonus one, or whatever you want to. If you want to do 2 in 1, it's up to you. Whatever.
We'll do maybe one each, and then we can sort of think about the third.
Right. Okay. Sounds good.
Cool.
So I sort of asked you whether we could do a combination of books or was it like three books and 3 games, because I love reading and I love playing. But I figured since we're on a desert island, I would choose the games instead, and that way we could write the sagas of the island with the games.
Okay.
So the first game that I chose, I was trying to think of games that are kind of never ending, that you could, like, there's, like, I love sort of big storyline games, but ones that kind of never end, so you've got as much to do it. So the first one I thought of was the Call of Duty Black Ops, not for the Call of Duty aspect, purely for the zombies, sort of, I don't know what you call it, like the side game, which was the main game for me. Because it was unbelievable. We, like myself and Jamie and one of our mates, Mark, we used to play this all the time, and our goal was to get to level 30 in the zombies. There was a story, but we were so bad. Like, we played it all the time, we were still so bad, but we could never get past level 30. So I would definitely take that, because it was the game's amazing. The zombies game is just brilliant. It's so like tense, and when it gets that level up, there's more zombies coming. You're just like, ah! So I'd definitely choose that, because it's brilliant and terrifying.
It's the first time anyone has mentioned that. I thought when you were saying, epic and big and never ending, I was like, well, here we go. He's going to choose what everybody chooses, which is Skyrim. Are you talking the very first Black Ops then, or any one specifically?
Well, I think for me, it would be the first Black Ops, because those, like the Kinder der Toten and all that, and if we're allowing the DLC, all that kind of stuff, like that what do you call it, house, the kind of abandoned house when the zombies start coming in. Just amazing. And then when you got the Modern Warfare one as well, part of it, I think you could get the original Modern Warfare one. That one is terrifying as well, the kind of the Nazi zombies as well. But basically, well, if you're allowing all of them, then all of them.
Why not? They all come together, just make it a package. The house one that you're describing is the one that I think stands out. For some reason, I thought that was in World at War. The World at War have one zombie one as well?
That was the very, very first. So World at War came out with just a tiny wee map. It was a kind of like standalone map, and then it grew arms and legs. And it wasn't really until, you're right, Black Ops where it exploded.
Right.
You're right, it was originally World at War, but it was only a very minor. I don't even think they were really thinking about putting it in. I think it was just a kind of wee bonus level.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
because World at War obviously back then was still very single player focused more than anything else, whereas I guess Black Ops was the major change. I hated zombies, but it's purely because I was terrible, always so terrible at it. And you know when you're just so terrible at something, you just can't get into it.
Yep.
It's almost worse than Dark Souls because it just makes you like you get to that like level 29 or like, oh, we can almost get to 30, and then you just never do. It's so brutal, but it's brilliant.
I think that one of the best things about the entire game was that we spent, I mean, I'm not joking, we must have spent about 2 years playing that game, right? just smashing it like all the time. It would just be like, a Saturday night, let's just load up zombies, get pizza, get beers, and just see how far we can get. And I think that towards the kind of end of us sort of playing the game, after a couple of years, I think we played like, one of our mates was playing with like his younger cousin, and they were like smashing level 40 and 50. And I think at that point we were like, we are awful at this game. But we still carried on. But I think that kind of killed it once we realised we're not very good at this. But we just did it because we enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, that's the point. If you're enjoying yourself, what else more do you need?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like almost a year later that we realised there was a story, because we used to just play it for the levels, but then there was all this complex story and you could find out lots of different stuff about the characters and about what was happening. But yeah, we never got far enough to do it. But
nope.
Maybe on the island we'd find out what the story is.
Wouldn't have anything else to do, would we?
Yeah. And you certainly should never ever compare your quality, how good you are in a game, to the youth. That is a slippery slope.
No, it was terrible. It was terrible. It was embarrassing. But there we go.
Brilliant choice. Excellent. Right, what's next then?
I think probably are we going with the unending saga? Is that the kind of theme?
That was my kind of thoughts, but you can go with whatever you fancy.
I mean, I think if I'm gonna have to go unending saga, there's only one game that can come to my mind. Been going for 16 years? I think it's 2004, 15 years maybe, and that's and it's the only game that I've consistently played from release up until now, and that's World of Warcraft.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I should add, because it often comes up when you say something like that. Of course, there's an internet connection. If you can picture, do you know Lost, the TV show?
Yeah.
This is that island, so to speak, just a lot smaller and less smoke monsters. So, yeah. So you have your electricity, but and an online connection. Of course, World of Warcraft. You're still playing it?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I know. I mean, I was a Warcraft player pre-World of Warcraft. Like I loved the RTS games. I really got into Warcraft 2.
Dark Saga,
Warcraft 1 is horrifically difficult. It was too difficult for me. But the second one I played, and then I played the third one, and then I heard that they were doing this MMO. But I was instantly turned off because they said, it's a subscription based. And back then I was like, I don't have the money to pay that. But I walked into Game, the shop one day, and they said, you can pre-order it, blah, blah, blah. And the guy was like, it's amazing. And I was like, do you know what, I'll try it. And then I picked it up, brought it home. And I remember the first night I got it, I absolutely hated it. And I was like, I hate this game. But for some reason, I played it the next day. I think it's because I'd spent all my pocket money on it. And I thought, well, I have to play it now. And then that's when it kind of hooked me. And, the whole kind of I think it was the idea of this, it was this kind of big world. You're the story, and you can explore it. I mean, I know it's a bit cliche now, and it's not really anything new, but at the time, I was just blown away, and it was a world that I knew, that I'd played games previously. So I suppose it would be almost like playing like the Lord of the Rings online. You're like, there's Helm's Deep, or there's whatever, blah, blah. So for me, it was great. It was the unending thing. It was just like you keep going, getting your guy bigger, better.
Yeah.
All about the big numbers.
All about the big numbers. All about getting those epics.
It is, of course, an excellent choice. And you say you're still playing it. So obviously, it's an ever-increasing expansion-built world. Do you still have that same connection these days that you did perhaps back then, or is it more of a I'm playing it because I've always played it?
It's probably, to be honest with you, it's probably comfort.
Okay.
You know, it's a comfort thing. It's probably like, you know, when you go back to your favourite TV series or watch your favourite film.
Yep.
I mean, objectively, the game is not a very good game. You know, and I can understand that, and I know it's not. It's, you know, there's much better games that do things a lot better. But I think it's almost like, you know, you just get used to it because that's what you're used to, and you feel comfortable there, and you think, do you know what, I get an enjoyment out of it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I still have. It's funny, they released the classic WoW about a year ago. You know, like as in it was supposed to be when it first came out, like a separate version. And it was funny going back and playing a game that was 15 years old, and I thought, wow, you haven't aged very well, but the nostalgia for me was through the roof. Which I suppose is a lot of games, you know, people play them and they go, God, you know, wow, I love that game. And it's like when you try and show your mate a game that was out, you know, 20 years ago, and you sit down and you play it, and your mate's like that, this is literally awful.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, but it's really, really good. And you're like, this is pretty awful, but it's like you've got the nostalgia about it.
And coupled with the fact that you are exploring, like as you say, all these places that you'd seen like two-dimensionally, but you're able to explore them and see the characters, and it's pretty cool. Like for me, if I was to be able to go to like somewhere that was Lord of the Rings, I'd fucking love that. But excuse me, but yeah.
If only there was a game, Yates. If only there was a Lord of the Rings online game.
It's funny because when it comes, obviously nostalgia makes the world go around, particularly in certain subjects more than any other, and you kind of have to separate yourself and go, okay, I have nostalgic feelings for it because it has a connection to me from a specific time of my life. But then you'll often put it on. This happens a lot with, I think, PlayStation 1 games more than anything else, where a game is held up objectively as, oh, that game was amazing. It's like, yeah, go back and play that. And while it was great for its time, don't compare it to these days. But that nostalgia has driven, like, look at recently, the remakes of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. While they are effectively remakes, they are still basing that entirely on people's nostalgic view of those games, and then sold incredibly well because of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like Final Fantasy VII.
There you go, yeah.
That's really interesting because I went back maybe about, say, 4 years ago, and it's actually, David actually played it a lot more than I did because I didn't have a PS1, but I think I bought it from a PSP or something like that about 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember playing a wee bit of it, and I thought, I actually don't really, like, I thought it's okay, but I didn't grasp me. But when I've been playing through the remake, I was like, wow, this is amazing. You know, so it's interesting you say that. It's
incredible. If you miss out on a specific point, something that's held up in regards, a high regard, and you miss out on that, when you do eventually go, oh, you know what? People have banged on about it for so long. Let me try it out. You go into almost have a more objective view, I think, than anything else.
Mm-hmm. It's a shame. It is a shame, you know. But I suppose that's why these remakes are so popular. That people, you know, they want to get the nostalgia of the old game, but have the graphics and the technology of nowadays. So,
yeah. You know. Off the top of both your heads, then, is there something, and it doesn't have to be specific to gaming, is there something that was so iconic in pop culture that you never watched or played or heard until recently, and that you kind of you understood, like you'd always avoided it because, hey, look, it's not going to hold up, but then you either did it and you found it was as good as people said. Is there anything off the top of your head you can think of?
I think
that's different. Probably. Well, I mean, I know I just touched on Final Fantasy VII there, but that's a bit different because obviously the remake came out and I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's quite a difficult question because.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything I'm trying to think of things that I missed in terms of games that came out, because there was a kind of generation of PS1 things that I didn't quite catch on to.
There would have been quite a few, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Didn't have that console. I mean, I'll give you time to think because there's one. I'll give you my one.
Okay.
And it's a movie. So I only saw last year for the first time Blade Runner, the iconic sci-fi movie Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And you know, it was one of those where it's like, everyone's always saying, oh man, you should check it out. And I'm like, look man, it's so old now, it's never going to be good. It's never going to hold up. What's the point? And then it finally got that point where it's like, you know what, I've watched so much, let me check this out and see, and just at least I can say I've seen it. And I adored it. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. Still holds up and all that kind of thing. So that's my example of, yeah, you know what, it can work.
Yeah, there is things, but I'm going to have to rack my brain with what I've watched in the last maybe kind of 2 years. It's probably more films. It's probably more films that I've watched.
Likely, yeah.
Leave that one with me.
Yeah.
Leave that one with me. So yeah.
Okay. I'm the same. I'm like rapping through it, and like all I can think of is things that I've seen. I'm like, nope, I've seen that or watched that. Or
you've got a worldly life. You've seen a lot, played a lot, heard a lot.
Or far too much time in my hands. I don't know.
I've got a small suggestion, David, for the last game, right?
Yeah.
Right. You obviously said about a certain not role-playing game, a certain RTS. Can we kind of split that in two, right? Because obviously you've got your one, in the same series, right?
I think I know what you're going for.
I think you should go with that, and that means we can talk about that one. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
So,
the third game. Well, I was going to talk about one, but we'll maybe talk about the series. It's Total War. Real-time strategy game, and there's one in particular that I think we both like. It's the Warhammer Total War. Now, unfortunately, my laptop, which I use, isn't good enough to run it, so I've not been able to play it. But I'm desperate to, because I loved my first introduction to Total War was Rome Total War, which I still play to this day. It's absolutely incredible, and I'm desperate. Whenever they release the next ones, I'm like, I want to play Medieval 2, I want to play Rome 2, I want to play all these, and they've released now 2, I think, Warhammer ones.
I think it's 2 actually. Yeah.
But yeah, we both used to play, or we still do occasionally play the kind of tabletop Warhammer, more the sci-fi version of it. But yeah, the fantasy that just looks incredible. If it's still got those same game mechanics, it'll be, I'm sure, just so in depth and just amazing. Just both elements of it, the war map or the sort of war game of it, but also that map based organization and building up the different parts and making things strong, and it's incredibly difficult, definitely, but for me, I could go on forever trying to conquer this whole map and keep all your provinces happy, and could never do it. Far too hard, but amazing. But blend that with Warhammer, it'd just be incredible, I think.
Because obviously your one of your big interests, your personal interests, is Rome.
Yeah. Well, I love it.
Love Roman Empire.
Yeah, really cool. There's so many cool characters, historical characters, and so many cool stories. Just brilliant. So yeah, blend that with Warhammer lore and that kind of stuff would be unbelievable, I think. So
basically what you're saying is Total War but with dragons everywhere.
Absolutely. That's what it means.
Be sure that's a win.
It's such a sinkhole. I've never really played any of the Total War games, or ever really got into Warhammer. I have tried, but that is such a universe that is already so wide and ranging, from the tabletop stuff to your books, to your media, to your gaming and stuff like that. It's almost terrifying to even consider going, you know what, I'm gonna try. Where do you bloody start? Where is the starting point of Warhammer? What's the very first thing that happens?
Right.
How long have we got?
Yeah, how long have you got? But okay, to keep this really, really brief, obviously there's two worlds in Warhammer. There's the fantasy one, and then there's the sci-fi one, the 40k.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right, now, what I would probably say is, in terms of popularity, the 40k one is far more popular than the fantasy one, which is interesting. I, generally speaking, am more of a fantasy kind of guy, but in this setting, I much prefer the futuristic one, which is unusual for me. But anyway.
But it's cool. It's kind of a blend of both.
Yeah, it is a blend.
One, it's still really fantasy elements. They've still got swords. They've still got magic. They just call it something else. So yeah, it's kind of really coolly done.
When you said that, when you said 40k, my mind conjured up an image of a big human-like guard wearing massive armors and holding guns. And that's what my first mind went to. You're right about popularity. I don't know Warhammer, but that's what comes into my mind.
Yeah. It's got a very, it's quite iconic. I often think I've been interested in Warhammer for years. It's just been a universe. It really appealed to me having a 3D thing, and then I got into the lore, blah blah blah, and all that. As somebody who isn't involved in it, does Warhammer come up quite a lot? Is it something that is quite? Do you know what I mean? Like, because I'm obviously involved in it, I see it all the time. But I'm in those circles, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
As somebody who's not involved in it even remotely and actually doesn't have an interest in it, does it come up quite a lot?
Nope, absolutely not. The most I'll say is if you might be scrolling for a games list and it'll be part of an upcoming games release or stuff like that. But we certainly get no contact even from the game companies we deal with. It's not something that comes. I think a lot of it as well is because obviously it's predominantly a series associated with PC more than anything else. And I am not a PC player. I'm a console kind of person. In fact, even now I'm using a Mac. So like, it just doesn't circle. In my local town, there's a games workshop. That's about it. I have never stepped foot in it. I've walked past it. It always seems to be really busy, which suggests its popularity. But beyond that, and other than having a few people I know out in the world that do some painting and model creation of figures and things from that era, but then they also cover a lot of fantasy stuff. So you often see Lord of the Rings and Warcraft stuff involved in that as well. It's not. I guess this is the thing. It's always kind of weird enough, and maybe less nowadays, but always was kind of almost like a little bit of a, not want to say dirty word, but seen as a bit of a, that's for the weirdos over there, you know? Yeah. And certainly not fair considering what those people who would say that were like, oh yeah, those guys are weird, but I love Lord of the Rings, and excuse me while I put my elven headdress on and stuff like that.
No, I totally agree with you. I remember being in school, and it was very uncool, and like people would look at me like, oh, you're into that weird Warhammer thing. And like, I loved it. It just resonated with me. And, and I did get a bit of stick for it, but I was like, I don't care. I love plastic men, and the stories, even now, I'm still as, if not even more passionate about it, these days. So I think it's brilliant. I'm at the moment, I literally, like, sitting right here, I've got boxes of it right here that I haven't made up yet. So I need to get through that. That's been good. That's one big good thing in lockdown. I've been able to sit and get through all that stuff.
Yes. And you're absolutely right, Carl. It spans so many different things as well. Like, it's the tabletop, it's got the books, there's comics now, there's games, there's board games, it just infiltrates so many different bits. So there's lots to be able to do on it. It's great.
Yeah.
Nothing warms my heart more than hearing people who are proud of their hobbies or what they enjoy and stuff like that, because I think it's something that comes with age. Where you're less likely to go, oh, that's cool. And now you're like, I don't give a shit. I just really, really enjoy it, and that's fine.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think as you get older, you don't really, you're not quite as concerned about people's opinions. But I think as you get older, I think other people don't care as much. Like if I was sitting at somewhere with a bunch of mates and I was like, I'm really into doing like model painting, or whatever, I think most people can be like, oh, that's a bit odd, but fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's what most people, but I think when you're younger, like, oh, that's really geeky, that's really, really uncool. Although I think that culture's changing a wee bit now.
Oh yeah. I think it's just with the changing times. But shit, that will be, you saying that, we're having a beer and you saying that, and we're getting to know each other, is 10 times more interesting than me going, hey, what do you like to do? And you're just like, hey, I like to have a drink. Ooh. What are we going to talk about now? So yeah, no, I know this is a kind of sidetrack from obviously the Total War series, but
you know, I think again, that was something that, like, you know, I was into the kind of Warhammer side of it, and David was into the Rome side, so we used to, and the medieval one as well, really, really cool.
Yeah,
there's
all of them.
Yeah, cool season games. It was like a giant game of Risk, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
David,
conquering. It's amazing.
So you said, David, you've got a wider interest in Rome in general, as in like Roman history and stuff like that. Where does that come from?
I think basically I remember in primary 4, I think we did a topic on Rome, and we managed to get to go to in Glasgow. There's the Kelvin Grove art gallery. It's like a museum.
Cool.
We went in and we managed to, I don't know how, but the school organised us to have this talk about Rome and about all the centurions, all that kind of stuff. I remember being able to put on armour and hold the shield. I was a tiny wee guy, just on this massive shield towering over me in this heavy armour, and I was sold from that moment on. And then just like as I then learned more about it and all I think in school we were learning about Julius Caesar and all that kind of stuff, which was fascinating. And then just learn about all the emperors and all like the history and what they're still influenced us in our life, like in law. Our calendar is based on the Romo-Julian calendar. It's just insane. And when we recently went to Rome in Italy, we went to the Colosseum, and just seeing how they thought of like coming up with different things. Like in the Colosseum, they had like different platforms that could move up and create different scenescapes. Like nowadays, you'd go to a theatre and think that's mind-boggling. So like being able to do that thousands of years ago, it's just like, wow, how did they do this? How could they think of these things? Just insanely amazing. And just their legacy, like it's still just insane. So yeah, I'm fascinated by all. So that even just like ancient history for me is just really, really cool.
Cool. Right, Nocturne Wulf then. So this is really for you specifically, David, because you're fairly-ish newish to Nocturne Wulf. Fairly-ish.
A kind of strange one. So I'm, new again. I think is probably the most correct.
New again.
Yeah. So when the band was formed, I was originally in it, and then I just we were sort of there. I think it was about a year or so by the time Nocturne Wulf was actually formed, and then I decided to try my hand at primary school teaching. And very quickly realised, not for me.
Okay.
So I came back, and then just various iterations. I've now finally come back to the singing role. So, and I'm now nice and happy, which is grand. So
there was no when you came back, there was no issues about fitting back in. You already knew the guys. You'd already been part of it at the start, so it was very, very comfortable, I guess.
I think well, I knew, like Jimmy said, like we've played in bands like pretty much ever since we've known each other. Like it was very quickly, we'd sort of formed a wee band for a school talent show, and then from then on we got the bug, and just in various different bands and iterations, we've always kind of found each other, a sort of kindred spirit in each other.
Cool.
We like to do music. We kind of know how each other like kind of work together, so it kind of works well, I think. So that like coming back to, like Jamie was always in it, so that was going to be a good fit. Chris, I'd never met Chris, the other guitarist, before, but I mean he's amazing. He's really easy to get on with. Steve was in the band when I was in the band. The only new addition was Stephen, the drummer, Stephen Strachan. He came in just after, but again, like I think we've been able to gel really well together. There's never been an issue with any of that, and it's just a nice feeling. It's kind of like a wee family. It's quite cool.
Do you think then where you are right now as a unit, do you think that Nocturne Wulf kind of like this is it at its most powerful, at its most complete and settled?
I think so. I mean, like it's harder for me, like because I was able to see. So I've been sort of both sides of it. So so like when I was watching it, I was like, oh man, they are so good. Especially recently, it was like, oh man, they're just really so good. And you've always had that like inner conflict of like, oh, they're absolutely brilliant to watch. I kind of want to be up there with them, and that was always that thing. So yes, like I would say they were like super powerful when I was watching them, and that sort of inspired me to like I just wanted to do it again. So whether, I mean, maybe Jamie can answer that a bit better. Like I hate talking about myself as a performer. I'm like hypercritical, but whether we're equally as, or I don't know, it's harder for me to say. But I think we're in a good state, I think.
It's very interesting because obviously David sung initially, and then just before we kind of started to become, I don't mean serious. I think before it was 4 of us in a room playing tunes we liked, and then it came to a stage where it was like, we've kind of written these songs, we kind of jammed them out, and then we're like, I'd quite like to go and play these in a venue.
Okay, yeah.
And that, and so it was like, do you know what? I think I'd quite like to try and give this another kind of shot. So instead of it being sort of like just a kind of hobby that we did, we were like, let's kind of take it up. And unfortunately, that's when David decided, not unfortunate, that's not what I mean, but David decided, I want to go and do the teacher thing. So we had to get in a new singer. And the chap who we've got who came in, his name is Bob. I think it would be fair to say that Bob's more of an aggressive persona, aggressive singer as well. So that kind of was a bit strange because like we were always I was always used to David singing, and David's got a very he's got a very nice voice, a very kind of theatrical, very very well pronounced voice. So when Bob came in, at first I thought he sounded a bit kind of like, I thought, he can sing, that's good. And then I think he started to grow into himself, and he became very, very angry, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. So it's quite interesting that once kind of Bob had decided he wanted to spend more time with his kids, and I was like, that is totally cool. And we're all still really good friends, really, really good friends. Bob's great. And then David actually said, I know Bob's leaving. I'd quite like to be involved with coming back. And I was like, well, makes sense to me, because I've always been a huge fan of David's voice. So it was interesting to then hear David re-sing the songs, if that makes sense, with his vocal, because I suppose initially these songs were written with David's voice in mind.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. So that it was interesting to kind of hear it. So I think that we're definitely in a. I think, it's just interesting to kind of go from the start and then kind of find yourself again. And I do not want to take anything away from Bob, because Bob is a fantastic. He's a great frontman and great vocalist. But I think the problem is that Bob and David are so different. They're so different, and I suppose that's a good thing.
Yeah. It's that kind of change in dynamics, isn't it? But the energy's still there. It's just that dynamic shift.
It wouldn't perhaps be as effective if Bob had replaced you, sounded exactly like you, and then likewise you've done the same, because you get that different dynamic. And I'll take it your majority of your fan base kind of like never really or enjoyed the change, didn't really have an issue with it.
I think that what's the interesting thing is, I think that the question is, we will see. Because obviously certainly when we've done, when David came back into the band and we played a couple of shows, there definitely was a lot of compliments towards David. People were very, very complimentary towards him, so that was really, really good. Really enjoyed that. But I suppose what it really comes down to is, we've got this single coming out, Silver Hand.
Yep.
And this is the first one that David will be actually singing on. So I suppose, we'll see what people think. Because obviously the album, which is on Spotify and you can get blah blah blah, was Bob singing.
Yep.
I think one thing that really I thought was really, really nice was when Bob came into the band, he said to me, he said, I really want to try and respect what David has done, and I really want to honour what the kind of work that he did with it. And I think he said it to you as well, David, and I thought that is
first time I ever met him I think I've met him at a gig, but then the first time I met him outside and was actually chatting to him, he said, like, I was one of the first things he said, he was like, oh Dave, just want to say, I want to do as much justice to you as possible. And I was like, whoa, that's like, didn't have to say that at all, but that's so nice. And yeah, like I can't like compliment enough. Like that's seeing you guys play like with Bob was just like, whoa, like I was a fan, which is strange. Like it's kind of cool to hear some of the songs that I'd written, like someone else singing. It was like, whoa, that's how it like.
It's quite unique situation.
Yeah, really cool. So yeah, he did an amazing job. I can't fault him at all and thank him enough. Brilliant.
Your horror movie choices then. Who wants to get started with this?
I don't mind. Do you want me to?
You can start. You can start. Right. Yeah.
So first one that I was thinking of, and it's kind of more recent. Like I love horror films, but I find like I love watching them, but I find there's not a lot of them that can like scare me and stay with me. But I still love the experience. But recently, the one that I have loved the most and did get me a wee sort of tingle was The Conjuring. The first one. I really like just the way it's filmed, and like the story was brilliant. In fact, it's kind of based on truth, whether you believe it or not. But yeah, I thought it was really well done. I think it was the Blumhouse Productions. They've then done loads of other sort of spin-off ones, which some of them are good, some of them aren't. But that original Conjuring, I loved. So I would definitely, I've rewatched it like hundreds of times since, and still love it. So I would definitely take that, I think, as my horror.
The Conjuring, you're not funny. Weirdly enough, you're not the first to say The Conjuring. It doesn't come up much, but it seems to have resonated quite well with seasoned horror fans more than anything else. But it always said the same thing as well, which is the first one's good, and then we went off into this horror universe, Marvel version of horror with The Conjuring 2 and The Nun and stuff like that. I find it really hard to relate because I have an inherent dislike of paranormal horror because so I don't know if you so for me, horror moves in cycles. We get stuck in one specific genre and we spam it until everyone's sick of it. We've done it with zombies, we've done it with torture porn, so the Hostels and Saws and all that, and then Paranormal Activity started a boom period for paranormal horror. And we have been stuck in that cycle for nearly 15 years where no one does anything original and it's the same thing. Like if you go now to say Netflix or Amazon Prime and you'll see the same things where it's the ghost, the wailing, the scary thing. And because of that, I've grown to dislike everything paranormal, even if The Conjuring at the time was original, good, clever, interesting. They're based on true events, as you say. Whether or not you believe it or not, doesn't really matter. Is it an effective horror? Yeah, it is. It's just, it's not one that resonates deeply with me. But I understand it does with a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think, like, I totally get it. Like, it has, like, they've sort of mined that well almost dry, haven't they? Like that thing. But for me, like, I don't know, like that whole, I think it's because I love fantasy, and that sort of element of like the witchcraft and demonic stuff. Like I love all that kind of things. And if it's done well, I think it can be really, really effective. And I think The Conjuring did it well, but yeah, they've sort of, they've ruined it a wee bit with the sequels. Some of them are okay, but some of them are not so okay.
Do you believe it? Do you believe the true event side of things? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think the two people, the two investigators certainly went investigated. Yeah, they went investigated. I think the family certainly believed that they were being, the house was possessed, or there was an entity. Do I believe it? I think there is. I believe in spirits. I don't think I believe in ghosts so much, but I believe in spirits. I think, can there be a malevolence sort of through it all? Maybe. I've certainly not experienced it, but yeah, maybe there's an element of truth in it, I think.
Cool. That's cool. Jamie, then you got one.
Well, I've had to change my change what I was going to say now, because I was going to originally What am I going to say? Well, I remember the first time I saw Paranormal Activity. I thought, but I thought, do you know what? I'm going to try something just a bit kind of maybe slightly off kilter then. And the last kind of like, because I think what defines for me for horror, I need to have a scare element. Now, generally speaking, unfortunately, I like the ghost thing. So I'm quite comfortable in this cycle because I like ghosts, I like demons, that kind of thing. So I don't have much of an issue. But the last time I think I went to the cinema, and I remember thinking, oh, I remember getting a bit kind of like feeling a bit kind of, was actually, and bear with me when this was the third Blair Witch film.
Oh!
Now, I know that's a bit of an unusual choice, but I remember like I remember the first time I saw the Blair Witch, I was terrified. But just to kind of modernise it up a wee bit, when I went to go and see the third one, I think what it was we've got the Cineworld in Glasgow, and they have a thing called the D-Box, which is effectively like a seat. Now, the whole cinema has got these seats, and they'll move. So, say if you're saying, go back and forward, which is pretty cool. But what really made it was they've also got sort of other elements. So they've actually so when I was watching the Blair Witch, and it was raining, there was little droplets of rain coming down.
Oh.
And also in the back of the seat, somebody got stabbed, and a thing came out the back of the seat. I mean, it was very subtle. It was very, very subtle, but a wee bit came out, and I was like, oh! So, okay, you could argue that it was enhanced because of, external factors, but the whole experience was quite unnerving, especially being in a forest, running around, you don't know what's going on. It's all that kind of like, I mean, I really like this, is it found footage?
Yeah.
Like Troll Hunter. One of my favourite films of all time. Love it. In fact, so much we wrote a song about it. The found footage thing, and the fact it's dark, you don't know what's going on. Love it. So for me, I think I would say Blair Witch 3, which is an unusual one, I think.
It is very unusual choice. I'll give you fair warning, right? I am a judgmental prick when it comes to horror movies. That's simply just the way that's the way it is. So, but I love the way you described. So one of the things that I really wish I'd experienced was the old days of cinema, where you would have these things happening within the theatre to try and create the ambience and stuff like that. And I've heard of this, what you just described there, the 4D experience. Yeah. I've never personally done it, and that sounds amazing. Just that enhancement sounds amazing. The best example I could ever use would be I saw The Nightmare Before Christmas in 3D, right? And I'd seen that movie so much, it's a lovely, lovely movie, but the 3D had the snow. So like you had the effect of the snow being in it. And it sticks so strongly in my head, even though it's just 3D. I'm thinking, my God, that 4D experience would be so amazing. So to experience the third Blair Witch, where those small little things, that's incredibly effective. And while it doesn't, it enhances your experience. So that's never a bad thing, I think. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not saying as a standalone film, I don't know. I mean, I think, disclaimer, I am a very casual horror fan. Fair enough.
What I mean by that is, I've seen kind of most of the kind of like, the classics, and I've watched a lot of the kind of things, but I will not be in the league of your interest. Like that, this is obviously you're very, very passionate about it, which is great, which is amazing. So I would consider myself to be quite a casual fan, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm a bit more happy-go-lucky with it. Like I'll kind of be like, oh yeah, I'll just kind of go and watch it. And to be honest, most of the time I'm like, that was good, that was exciting. So, in terms of the third Blair Witch, maybe not the best film, but because of that experience, it enhanced it, is what I'm saying.
I think that's incredible. If you read regularly horror reviews on the site, you'll see a running theme, which is my inherent hatred of found footage. But that's simply because
whoops.
Yeah, but it's something that where it's simply because it's so lazy. I find it incredibly lazy now, and I really disliked the Blair Witch 2016 one purely because to me they learned nothing and repeat the same tropes from a movie that was released in 1999. And it's like you had so much to learn from and you did nothing. So that was kind of like my issue. However, for every inherent dislike, you will never stop me from watching a new one, because the idea is, please prove me wrong and please give me something special. And it happens all the time. I could run off a list of found footage horrors, modern ones, where I'm like, look man, check that out because it's good, it does this well or it does that well. You name Troll Hunter. Troll Hunter is one of the best found footage movies ever made. You know?
Yeah. I spent maybe about 6 months trying to find like unusual horror films. I mean, I use the term unusual. I mean, again, as a casual fan, you know, I mean, that's just like digging down a wee bit. But it was things like I would watch, like there was a film called VHS, which, again, you know, not very mainstream, but I was like, oh, that was really, really good, you know, in terms of a horror film. I'm trying to think. Grave Encounters was a bit weird. It was a bit of a kind of strange one, but I remember kind of jumping at that a few times, and I thought, you know, I know it's all kind of cheap jump scares, but you know, if it works, I suppose.
Mate, you can never say anything bad about Grave Encounters, man. I loved that movie. It took me by complete surprise, and I'm very hard to scare. Like, I don't get creeped out. And I certainly don't jump. So if a movie is capable of getting me enough where I find myself jumping, I'm like, I want to give him a round of applause and say, you well done. And Grave Encounters was great fun. For being a straightforward found footage paranormal horror, it did it really well. And that's all you can ask for, particularly in a genre where there is nothing's original anymore. You can do nothing. Yeah. Even if you wanted to, what possible idea hasn't been done already?
That's true. And just a really quickly on just I know we're going on and on, but see Paranormal Activity. The first time I watched that, I saw that in the cinema, right? I came home that night, I went to bed, my speakers on my computer were still on, right? The wee light. And I was like, I am 100% not going up and getting. I was like, I'm not leaving my bed. Like I was actually genuinely terrified. Like I was like, I can't do this. So, you know, that was probably one of the scariest films at the time I'd seen. I thought it was. I was like, is this real footage?
Yeah.
What an idiot! What a total idiot! But I was like, is this real footage? And I was terrified. So it worked.
Yeah, it did. And that the success of that movie, from the budget to what it earned, tells you it worked. Yeah. Third choice then. Who's gonna do this one?
Oh, you go.
So I split between two, but I'm gonna go with a kind of odd one for a horror film, but I'm gonna go with Alien. I think. Okay. Just that, like, for me, horror is like when it's really tense and you're just always like, oh. Plus it's a monster movie, but just that original one, like, it's just so horrible all the way through. Well, like as soon as the alien breaks out, it's just you're always on the edge of your seat. The actual beast itself is horrible looking, and it's just so well done. The close confinement of all the the pipes and all the corridors and stuff, just absolutely amazing. So I like, as a sci-fi movie and as a horror movie smushed together, brilliant. Deserves all the plaudits, I think. So I'd rewatch that over and over and over again. So good. Yeah, I think between that and Halloween, I think for me.
I mean, either or. The fact that Alien is in 1979 and you can still watch it in 2020 and it's still as effective as ever. Use the word tension. It is a movie that just constantly twists that screw over and over again with very few relief moments. I love it as much as the next person. It's iconic for a reason. Right, brand new single then. We haven't really had a chance to touch upon it. We've been going for ages and actually haven't mentioned what you're here for. Out on the 11th of July, Silver Hands, inspired by World of Warcraft, which obviously has already been a major subject already. When you say inspired by World of Warcraft, is there something specific from World of Warcraft that inspired this?
Okay. Do you want me to talk about this, David?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So basically, so the whole thing about Warcraft originally was humans versus orcs.
Yep.
Right. That was the premise. That was the basic premise. but then the orcs had help from demons. Okay, so basically we had the good guys and the bad guys. Okay, it's never as simple as that, but that's what it was. I love the idea of knights. I love the ideas of these kind of crusading, holy. Like the paladin thing is, if I ever play an RPG, I'm like, how do I play a paladin? How do I do that? How do I play the paladin? How do I want to be that, the righteous hero. I mean, I'm just basically a walking fancy trope, but I don't care. Right? That's what I like. And there we go. So the fact is that I always loved the fact that there was this group of paladins called the Knights of the Silver Hand, and they were the ones that tried to kind of, help humanity against the undead. So, and I thought that'd be quite cool to have a kind of song about that, because it's something that I like. So the song was written, and then we kind of mucked about with it, and then I kind of came up with these sort of idea for like lyrics, and then all kind of twist and change, blah, blah, blah. So it was just more because of my love of that. So the song is just all about, the paladins kind of helping humanity. It's the last stand. It's the champions of light, all that kind of stuff. Just dead cheesy nonsense, but it is what it is.
Kind of relatable with it, in that it's like, as you say, as the last stand, and it's like overcoming those like insurmountable odds almost. So kind of like, at the moment, it's a kind of nice idea to be spreading about.
Absolutely. And it comes across. So I call it a blood-pumping, hair-raising ode to heavy metal that is guaranteed to get the head banging. A fair summation?
I mean, that sounds great to me. I think that's totally fair. I mean, I think our sound, I think we definitely hearken from an old school metal point of view, and I think that with certain modern elements, just because of the age we live in, and so I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. I always get nervous when either writing or listening to something that's either described or it comes to me and goes, oh, okay, this is a take on classic metal, because I feel like when you say classic metal, you're like, wait, are you trying to date it already? Where you're like, oh, it sounds like it comes from a specific era, but also that's too wide-ranging. That's so wide-ranging. What do you mean? Do you mean Black Sabbath? Do you mean Iron Maiden? Do you mean Priest? I mean, come on. Yeah. So it's actually often I feel like just saying, look, this is, if you said to someone, what does heavy metal sound like? This might be a better one, because it's not an offshoot. It's not black. It's not death. It's not post. It's not this. That's a better combination, and I think that kind of works, particularly as you're describing this upbeat, battle style ready, feel good, almost powerful message in it. I think that comes across well. Well, that's good to hear. I think the mantra for Nocturne Wulf has always been, what kind of music do you play? Heavy metal.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been. Now there are certain elements that are maybe thrashy.
Yep.
There's certain elements that are maybe power metal. And there's certain elements that maybe at times are groove. So, but I think for the whole, the kind of the band mantra, the kind of the mission statement is just heavy metal. Do you know? And that's kind of what it is. It's never kind of, it might stray a wee bit this way and a wee bit that way, but at the end of the day, hopefully, it's just heavy metal.
Cool. And it's also coming out with a video. Can you tell us anything about that video?
It has lyrics in it. Does that count?
It's a lyric video, yeah?
Yeah, we toyed with the idea very briefly of doing a kind of lockdown video, style video, because obviously we can't, so before, when we were thinking about releasing the Signal, we were like, oh, we'd like to do a video with it. We were thinking of doing a kind of bigger video, that sort of filmed video. Obviously lockdown happened, we couldn't do that, so we toyed with doing a kind of silly video of us all like in our homes doing our different parts, just like filmed on our phone type thing. Yep. And that was kind of the plan for maybe about 2 weeks, until I think it was yourself, Jamie, it was, well, what happens after lockdown? What happens to the video then? Does that become obsolete? And we're like, oh yeah. So like whenever we're going to get back out, we'd like the video still to be relevant. So yeah, that we then sort of talked about, well, what can we do if we can't get together? We then thought, well, maybe we'll do a lyric video, and we actually approached the guy that's done it, and we're pretty happy with how it's all turned out and stuff. So yeah, And plus it means that people then know the song when we can go out gigging. They kind of might know the lyrics and they might sing along, which would be lovely.
Wicked thinking that you're right. You do a lockdown video, and while that's fun and great for the time being, that you are reaching the point where automatically that will become dated. I will admit, when obviously the press release said video, I was like, they're being very coy about that. What is that? Is that a lyric video, or is it just, background, nothing else? And then I was like, right, have they gone crazy with this? And I started picturing, do you know the South Park World of Warcraft episode?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, have they done that? Obviously not.
That would have been.
If we had the skills, that would be.
That would have been good, wouldn't it?
That's time and effort. That's an incredible amount of work. So yeah, it was. I did wonder.
Well, I know what I'm going to be doing for the rest of lockdown.
Yeah. Right, guys. Record collection and your record selection, should I say? Who wants to get us started with this?
Maybe I'll let you go for it. I've gone first.
Right. Okay. So, what I would say is, I think probably the album that kind of has inspired me the most, probably in the last year, okay, has probably been Temple of the Damned by Exodus.
Oh wow!
Which I know is a bit. I mean, I know that's probably the kind of upper end of like of kind of like heavy. I mean, it's starting to get into kind of like really really heavy stuff. In comparison to what we do, I think. But I think what it was really I'm a huge Gary Holt fan. I really like him. I like his style. I like the fact that he does fast stuff, but I also like he does I love chuggy guitars, so kind of stuff. And I thought that his blend of that was good. And Temple of the Damned, I only really kind of started listening to that. I mean, I've listened to it for years, but I only really listened to it in the last kind of few years, and I think that's had a huge impact on kind of how I play and how I kind of think about things. There's a lot of great tracks on that. I mean, okay, it's not for everybody, because I mean the vocalist sounds like a screeching goblin, and that's not. And I've had this discussion with David before, and David's like, Exodus, love the music, love the solos, love the riffs, absolutely banging, atrocious vocals. And I was like, that's totally fair, because I'm not generally speaking, I prefer singing. If you were to give me a band that sings and one that screams, I will always pick the singing band. On saying that, there are bands I do like that do scream, but that's generally how I kind of think. But Exodus seems to be a bit of a huge fan. The Temple of the Damned, brilliant album.
Yeah, so your connection is as much, not just, as you say, musically, loving the album overall, but obviously Gary Holt's guitar playing. So has that been a overall massive inspiration on your bearing as a player?
It's probably been one that's more had an impact later in my guitar playing. I mean, when I first started, it was James Hetfield. James Hetfield.
Wow.
That was what was. I mean, David will attest to this, how much I love Metallica. But like, for me, it was like I heard Hetfield and I love the solos, but I was never drawn to the solos as much as I was drawn to like the crushing riffs. Like if you hear like crushing guitar riff, I'm like, that really got me pumped up. So Hetfield was probably the first one. John Schaefer from Iced Earth as well, and probably Gary Holt. Those are the three guys that have probably. I'm not saying I can play like them. I am not saying I can play like them. I'm not even remotely even close. But that style, the kind of phrasing of how they phrase riffs, is something that resonates with me. Amazing.
Wide array as well. James Hetfield. It's so, because obviously most people just associate more with vocals, and guitar playing comes from Kirk Hammett more than anything else. Mm-hmm. So what an excellent choice. But you're right, riffs for days, man. It's massive fan here as well, dude. I grew up. They're what got me into metal. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Yes, I love it, honestly. I love it. I mean, I'm sitting right here, and to my right, I can see it. I've got the James Hetfield guitar is lying over there, So, I just, like I said, such a big inspiration. Can't be, it's just brilliant.
David, then, you got one?
Yes, I do. So Jamie alluded to one of the members of this band, but I would probably take with me Alive in Athens, a live recording by a band called Iced Earth.
Yep.
It's John Schaefer is he's the riff meister from that. He's the kind of main guitarist. But for me, it was hearing Matt Barlow. So the first time I ever heard Iced Earth, I was listening to a lot of Metallica, as we said, and then I'd sort of listened to Iron Maiden, and that like hooked me into the metal, the sort of metal elements. I was like, oh, this is great. So I trundled along to a wee shop called Avalanche Records next to Queen Street Station in Glasgow, and we used to go in there and just sort of troll through the CDs. And I saw this CD called Burnt Offerings, and I was like, instantly, I was like, oh, this looks amazing, because the front cover was just flames and this demon and their logo, Iced Earth. I was like, oh, I need to get this. So I listened to it, and the album's brilliant. But then I got to the very last song. I think there's only 8 songs on it, if that. Very last song, it's called Dante's Inferno. 16 minutes of just metal amazingness, awesomeness, and just there's riffs aplenty in there, but Matt Barlow, like, he could sing melodically, then goes into this high sort of Judas Priesty screech, but then could do this kind of gruff, like almost shouty as well. And for me, I was just absolutely blown away. So then I went back to that store, Avalanche Records, and there was a 3 CD collection called Live in Athens of just all live stuff. So it was like a best of, effectively, up until that point.
Okay,
all
cool.
their stuff. Hearing that, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to sound like, because it was just insane. It was so good. It was so tight, and just Matt Barlow, like, his vocals were insane. Like, live was almost even more amazing than on the record. So yeah, I was hooked instantly, and they have become my biggest inspiration, I think, even more so than Metallica. Just their themes they write about, it's all kind of fantasy, or a lot of it's all fantasy, a lot of history, because John Schaefer's a big history buff. And yeah, it's just a perfect blend of like melodic and fast and heavy and like emotive, and but I come from a kind of musical theatre background as well, so that theatricality that they incorporate, similar to Iron Maiden, like their shows are just insane. And yeah, Iced Earth do all that in one, so I would definitely take them, because they are perfect for me.
Yeah, I mean, Impact speaks volumes. It's interesting because for me, I've always seen it as a combination of, you say, that heavy metal sound with power metal, hence why I guess we get things like Demons and Wizards, the crossover with Blind Guardian and stuff like that. Yeah, weirdly enough, never been a big Iced Earth fan, but I love Demons and Wizards.
All right.
You know what I mean? Like,
interesting.
Yeah, but then that's because I am a crazy big Blind Guardian fan, and Hansi Kirch is literally like probably my favorite vocalist in the world these days. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. So obviously, then Iced Earth, is that like your favorite live album? Then the best like live recording you've ever heard, or?
No. I definitely second or top 3. I think I would say. Okay. I wouldn't be able to choose, but there's one that I would always put in my top 1, or my ultimate all-time favorite. And that would probably be the other CD that I would take to the island, and it is a bit of an outsider one, but it's On Stage by Rainbow, and this is in 1977 with the late great Ronnie James Dio, and yeah, it was him doing Rainbow, and it without a doubt has the best live song for me anyway, personally, that I've ever heard. Really? That version of Catch the Rainbow on that CD or that record is just insane. It's 12 minutes long, or 12 minutes plus, maybe 16 minutes long, but it's it's just this beautiful, obviously Catch the Rainbow's this lovely song, but it just goes into this almost like 9-minute long solo from Richie Blackmore, and it's just the dynamics in that song. It sort of builds up to this insane like riffing solo, and then it sort of brings it back down. Then Ronnie James Dio does this amazing solo riff, like vocally, and it's just so good. So that for me is my all-time favorite live CDs. My mum actually, that got me into Rainbow when I heard the best of. There was 2 CD, like best of CD. The first half of the CD was all the Ronnie James Dio stuff, and I was like, oh, this is insane. Man in the Silver Mountain, Tune, Stargazer, absolutely insane. Catch the Rainbow as well. But then when I heard this live one, I was like, holy moly!
Wow.
This is life.
I've never heard this live album. It sounds like it's definitely one to check out, obviously being Rainbow anyway.
Yeah, check it out. It's so good. And
was it recorded at a specific place, or was it one of those where it's like over a period of tours?
I think it's one tour, but yeah, it's like not one like recording, so it's lots of different shows in that tour that they've sort of got the best of. Because there's another, I think it's 1976, Osaka. They've recorded that one, and it's slightly different versions of the same kind of tunes and different tunes on it. But that one, 1977, I still can't believe, like, it sounds so good, and it's 1977. I'm just imagining being in that audience and hearing this like crushing sound. Back then it must have been now it's mind melting, but back then it must have been like, what is happening? This is amazing. So yeah, it's just so like powerful. I think like just the whole thing. Symphonic is probably the most best word I can describe it. But yeah, that song, I think it's number 3 in the album, Catch the Rainbow. It's just phenomenal.
Right, because you've basically done 2, and we might as well cheat here. Go on, and Jamie, you can take a 4th one.
Right. What I'm going to do is we're going to share this last one, because I know that this was one that was on your lists, but both of us will attest that this is probably one of the kind of top albums. So I think in terms of musicality, in terms of something that kind of has something for everybody, again, a live album, it probably is S&M by Metallica.
I was wondering if you were going to say it. Yeah.
Because I mean, I think it's becoming quite apparent that I love heavy guitar riffs, and David loves very melodic vocals. So I feel that's a good merge, because there's a lot of the orchestral side brings a kind of theatrical side out, but also you've got the big riffs of Hetfield, and I think that album, I remember hearing that for the first time and being quite blown away that this music existed, of heavy metal and classical, because I'm a fan of both. I mean, I'm not a classical music snob. I don't know a huge amount about classical music. I do listen to it, but I love a lot of soundtracks. And I think to hear kind of orchestra and then the guitars and all these songs you love, I was just like, this is amazing. And even now watching it, listening to it, I'm still like, wow, brilliant.
Blend, isn't it? Like, it was one of our mates actually in school, David Hunter, who'd let me listen to Nothing Else Matters on S&M. And this is before I'd even knew really what metal was. I'd heard of Metallica, and I just assumed that they were just this like, that's the sound. So he was like, listen to this, Dave, I think you'll really like it. He put on Nothing Else Matters. I was like, that's insanely amazing.
Yeah.
Who was that? And he was like, that's Metallica. And I was like, no, who is it really? He was like, no, that's Metallica. So he let me borrow that album, and I was like, whoa, this is insane. So that was my, again, sort of first introductory steps into the world of metal. And it's a perfect blend of, as Jamie says, that kind of symphonic, lovely, like melodious like stuff going on behind, but this like crushing, like powerful guitar and everything, and the drums going as well at the same time. It just worked so beautifully. It was amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that album as much as you both did, to the point where for a long time I couldn't hear certain songs, the original versions, without adding in Hetfield's woes and yeahs from the S&M album. It was awful.
That same talent show that we did, one of the first gigs that we did From the Bell Still at the school talent show, and we did effectively, I sang the S&M version of it. Just like all the echoes and the pauses and the different things.
Oh, that's amazing. But it works so well because it's so fucking powerful. So powerful and grand with that symphonic sound. Even if it's lacking it, because you haven't got that, it's still really recognizable. I was lucky enough to see Metallica play Wembley Stadium back in, I think it's 2006 or 2004, right? And it was this stadium, Wembley, and it was they had him, Mastodon and Machine Head on the bill as well. Machine Head had replaced Bullet for My Valentine last minute, and they played No Leaf Clover. Obviously a specific S&M song, and that sort of stuck out massively, like forever in my head, because you never think you're going to hear it.
Was that 2007?
Oh, it might have been 2007. It was around that time. I've got the stub somewhere. You know what? I can actually check right here.
Oh, look at that! There's an organised man. You can take a leaf.
Me and my wife love keeping our stubs throughout the years.
I had done that.
Oh, it's such a good idea.
You know, I do come across them randomly. I found a Limp Bizkit one that was signed by the drummer randomly. I was like, oh, I don't remember that.
I got a weird signed one as well. I've got a Tarry B's birthday party where we got tricked into going, signed by the Panic Cell singer. Don't even remember what happened that day.
What?
2007, you're right, sick of the studio.
I was at that gig as well.
Holy shit.
Small world. That was an excellent one. That was a really, really cool one. They did. It was No Leaf Clover, wasn't it?
Yeah. First time I ever saw them live, so like hell of a way to see them live.
Oh, tremendous. Tremendous.
Right, we're coming to the end, guys. Got a few more questions for you, and there's one final thing you will have to bring to the island that we don't tell people till the end. It's literally off the top of your head. Before then, though, Silver Hands, just a one-off. You already mentioned at the very, very start that you have been working in lockdown and so on. What is the kind of plan then as the year goes on regarding studio music? Is there really one?
So we actually had a meeting not long ago about this very thing, about what we kind of wanted for the end of this year and sort of going into next year. Obviously, gig-wise, it's very hard to know what's going to happen. But we're kind of working on the assumption that we can hopefully get out gigging kind of late this year-ish. So we're kind of working in October, through to December. So we've got a wee tour, sort of weekender tour lined up for going around Scotland in October. We were supposed to be doing a festival in October, but that's got kiboshed, unfortunately. So we figured rather than just have that cancelled, let's try and do something else. So that's in the works. We're hopefully going to do a few more wee gigs after that, so in November, a couple maybe in December. I think Jamie's wanting to set up it's kind of a gig on his own to play with some of the bands that we like, just up in Scotland and around us in Glasgow, which would be great. And then we've got a wee southern tour down in England lined up for March next year, which would be great, playing with some really good bands. So that would be something to look forward to, definitely. And I think for the immediate future, Jamie's already been really busy coming up with some new songs. We sort of have a drive that we sort of put our music into, our new ideas and things into. So we've got those to work on. We've got, I think, 3 or 4 other songs that we're kind of chosen to kind of really focus on, and that'll be our kind of next releases. And then we're hoping to get into, we're lucky enough to have a studio that we can make use of, so we're hoping to get into that kind of as soon as possible, and get them tight. But that's the kind of, you're right, there's kind of no real definitive plan that we have at the moment until we know what's going to happen, but that's kind of working plan that we're going off at the moment, to kind of keep ourselves busy and keep looking forward. That's the thing, like to just keep pushing on and go to the next step and keep working up. So that's the kind of idea.
From your basement band that plays to 2 fans every show to your massive stadium selling headliners, the problem is it's a question mark no matter what and I completely understand. It's great to hear that you're trying to set stuff up, but I get why it's constantly like, well, look, we're gonna see. Breaking news as of right now, my phone flashed up a short while ago, and that this is England, so Scotland obviously has different rules, but pubs, restaurants, hotels and hairdressers can open from the 4th of July in England. So imagine Scotland seems to be following suit a couple of weeks, I think, behind what England are doing, because we're rushing it. But the question, that doesn't help gigs. We all know it's this 2 meter distance. You can't open and you can't do gigs that way until that changes are all stuck. What's your thoughts, right? So let's say we are in September, October time, and it's like, you know what? Things are going well enough that gigs can open up with some checks, maybe hand wash and all that, but the social distancing meters has gone away, and so we can have gigs.
Okay.
Do you feel confident that fans, not just of yourself, but music fans in general, are going to come back quickly? Or is there any concern on your front that it's just going to be like, people are just going to stay away through fear or nervousness?
I think I've been working quite closely with COVID.
Okay.
Very, very closely with COVID.
Really? Okay.
And I think that there's a lot of people who are very, very frightened still. I think you've basically got a split. There's people who don't really care that much. I think you've got three kind of people. You've got people who don't care. You've got people who they adhere to the rules, but they'll still go and do what they need to do, which is fine. And then there's people who are terrified.
Aye.
And I think I think it comes down to the individual. Obviously, it's very difficult. Like, people will be desperate to go to gigs, but I would be curious if they turned around, say they did it on the 4th of July, they said, okay, you can go back to a gig. I think a lot of people would be like, I think a lot of people are going to be struggling. Like, see if you walk past a pub and it's very busy, I think a lot of people will go, I'm not going to go in there. Because I walked past it was one of the first days when Scotland was nice and sunny, which doesn't happen very often. And I was walking past a park, a very popular park, and I went to the door of it, the entrance to it, and it was heaving. And I actually found myself going, I don't feel comfortable going in there, which I didn't think I would feel. Like, I thought I would just, yeah, fine, we'll just saunter in. But it was very busy, and I looked around and I was like, I actually don't like this. And I had to turn around and go out, which is I was shocked at myself that feeling, I had that feeling, because I thought I would just be like, aye, whatever, cool. So I don't know.
It's going to be, isn't it? There's definitely going to be a sort of transitional period from when lockdown is officially released. And I think you're right, Jamie. I think like immediately after that, you're going to have that kind of like, whoa, what can we do? What can't we do? But I think maybe I'm quite naively optimistic. But when you're saying maybe September, October time, I think like people at the moment are desperate to go out. You know, they're desperate to just leave their houses and do something. So I think there's going to be a demand for gigs, certainly, because I think certainly bigger gigs, you know, the bigger bands and the bigger things, bigger, you know, theatres, they're not going to be able to you know, put stuff on as much. So I think it is a time for kind of grassroots stuff to really flourish. So I think come September, October time, that's when you might see people think, oh well, you know, this kind of stigma or the fear of COVID might have lessened somewhat. So that's when there might be this kind of boom of people looking to do things. So yeah, I don't know whether I'm now naively optimistic and thinking maybe that sort of time people are going to flurry, like rush to the gigs, hopefully. I don't know, but
I don't think it's naive at all. I'm in the same boat. I'm very optimistic. Obviously, from what we do in the site, we get a lot of hell of a feedback and talking to people in regards to that. And it seems it's an inherent rock and metal thing. The lack of live music, it doesn't seem to affect any other genre of music like us. That lack of, and people aren't demanding stadium shows, arena shows. It's the lack of grassroots, that regular Monday to Sunday shows that you can literally, if you live in a major city, so we're London, I can go normally any day I want up London and guaranteed to walk to the many different venues we have, and there'll be something on, even if I don't plan to. And if it's not sold out, I can go in. Yeah. That's where my optimism comes from. You know, it's just a matter of whether these venues survive it. You know,
that's true.
That's the thing, isn't it?
From that depressing note, then, what is your proudest accomplishment in Nocturne Wulf to date?
I think for me, it was, and I was playing bass at the time, so I was sort of filling in bass at that bit. But it was playing King Tut's, which is it's a venue in Glasgow. It was quite a kind of renowned venue, I guess, that a lot of bands have played through. But but yeah, just being able to be on that stage, and I remember seeing Iced Earth in that very same venue, and to be able to say, you know, I've graced the stage that Iced Earth have played on was amazing. So I think that for me would be well up there.
I think for me, what it was for me, I think the King Tut's thing was a big thing, just a personal achievement. But I think what really cemented it for me was when we actually released our album. You know, when I said, because I said for years, I said, I will be so happy when I can lift up our album and actually be like, this is the music that we created and we recorded and we've played. And I think that for me, that was a big moment when I finally picked up the album, that we'd spent all this time, money, effort, you know, there was a lot of, you know, emotion, blah, 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 whatever. And to actually have that, and then to put it out to the world and for it to get a decent response. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a wee local band in Glasgow. You know, we're doing this because we love it. It's, you know, it would be lovely to make a career out of it, but you know, that's not the kind of point of it. It was just because it was something that we loved doing, and the fact that as a kind of small local band, we put this out, and people said, "Do you know what? See for what you're trying to achieve. Thumbs up. That was good. That was nice. That was nice. It felt good."
And as you say, this is not like you're at the end of your careers. There's many more accomplishments to be made. It's good that you like all modern bands should be. You're a realist. You know where the glass ceiling is. It's just a matter of reaching it and then seeing if you can smash through said glass ceiling, you know?
Yeah, very possibly. I mean, I think that's the thing, is that I think the term, I mean, we all have our day jobs, we all do, you know, we all work in that. So, I mean, this is very much a serious hobby, you know. Yep. I mean, you know, I spend a lot, this is kind of what a lot of my time is used up doing, you know, is doing the band thing. And I know, and David's the same, he does that, but also David's got obviously interest in doing the theatre things, which is great. I mean, that's really cool. So, I mean, we've all got like our interests outside the band, which I think is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is that there's some people I know who it's just they live and breathe the band, and that's great. And you know what? Maybe they are the ones that will probably be more likely to make it, but I think that the amount of stress that they're under is horrible. And I've seen my mates, you know, who have been just so stressed about this all, and I don't think you're enjoying this anymore. You're so. Now maybe that's what you need to break through, but I just feel as if it's just like it's verging on desperation.
Yeah,
you know?
I wonder if that bleeds through sometimes, and like, because we do love it. So when we're playing live, it's just that energy's there, I think. So I wonder if you get to the stage where Jamie's talking about, where it's like, oh, you feel you have to do this. I wonder if that bleeds into the, you know, the live performance and even the sort of music as well. Whether that kind of enjoyment factor is kind of out of it, and it sort of affects the music. I don't know.
Awesome.
The days of rock stars are dead. It's as simple as that. So. You are, you know, you talk to a grassroots, as you say, local Glaswegian band, right? And we will have conversations with bands. I'm thinking of some already quite recently who are signed to major labels. Mm-hmm. And we often start our interviews talking about what they do for a living.
Yeah.
It is not a band anymore. Those days are done, man. And the sooner people realize that, so that they can also have ways to channel it. I don't like anyone ever suggesting, oh, your band's a hobby, oh, well done guys, go and have fun. It's insulting to a degree, but it can be a passion alongside your day. You need to survive. You got family, you got friends, you got wives, girlfriends, kids, so on, all these kind of different things, boyfriends, you name it, whatever you have in your life, they are your constant. And then obviously you have this wonderful passion that you will work at, but you're realistic about it.
I think so. I think you're right. I think, see, what kind of worries me is that obviously in recent years, the idea of music, people buying music has kind of declined. Mm-hmm. But what also is worrying is that the bands, the way they make money is from touring, which has declined. And I think it's not a good combination. Nope. Okay, you could argue that the live thing will come back, but that will be a steady increase. But the problem is that, I mean, how many times, I mean, I'm assuming that obviously you enjoy going to gigs, right? I think that's fair to say. How many times have you gone to go and see a band that you want to see and you thought, you know, you think, that's really expensive. I'm still going to pay it because I want to see the band, but I'm really not very happy about spending that much money. Does that happen a lot? Is that fair to say, or is that...
I mean, I'll share this with you guys as we've been doing this for so long. I feel like I know you now. A couple of years ago, myself, my wife, my brother, who's also one of the head writers of the site, made a conscious decision after, and it was caused by Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses, when they were doing the UK stuff. I've never seen Guns N' Roses, always wanted to, and they were charging upwards of £100. Metallica would follow suit shortly afterwards, a band I've seen live 7 or 8 times and always thought I'd see them live, and they were charging £80. Yeah. And we said, we will no longer pay this. We will no longer do it because for us, Guns N' Roses want £100. That to us is 10 bands who want £10, who are the future of the scene. That we can go to our small venues and have 10 times better time, be able to see the band, often be able to chat to them. Buying a Metallica t-shirt means very little in the grand scheme of things when I'm buying, say, for example, if I'm at your gig, a Nocturne Wulf t-shirt. It's the difference in that. And we made a conscious decision where we said, only in very rare circumstances where it's something like, I guess the only one I would use now is my number one bucket list band, which is Van Halen. But that's never going to fucking happen. And also, my specifics would have to be one half, it's a 2-set show. One half's with Roth, and the other half's with Hager. So everybody needs to get along and agree that for me to go, all right, here's £100, guys, crack on. It ain't going to happen. So that's quite important. And I understand what you're saying about not just about the live money going up and going down and then back up, but merch sales. For me, a major part of it is I will buy more merch at a show than I will say online, often because of the interaction as well, where, because, grassroots bands tend to finish on stage and someone gets directly behind the fucking merch counter. There's a chance to say, hey man, that was banging and stuff like that. Let me pick something up. So, I do completely understand where you're coming from in that.
On another, I'm really interested to see what you think of this. And this is a discussion I've had with a lot of local bands, particularly maybe from a more local metal scene. Do you think that the concept of the album is over? Do you know what I mean? That's a discussion that kind of a lot of people are talking about.
You're right. It is a discussion I've had a few times, particularly when talking to a band that isn't really releasing albums and is either doing them in single form or EPs. I don't think it's over. I think there's always going to be a drive for it, and I see this in the rise of vinyl, and weirdly enough, cassette sales as well, which as collector's items. One of our biggest things, myself and my brothers, we want bands to be smarter with how they're selling their music. Not just that, but also how they're promoting their merch. Say you're releasing an album and you know it's going to cost this much, and you go, right, we're going to do a package. It'll be an album and a t-shirt. No, come on, be more imaginative than that. Can you turn this into something a bit wider ranging? Because people will pay it if you can afford to do it. Or also crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, man. This needs bands. Our music needs to start cottoning onto this. Really encouraging it. And I'll give you a good example. Very recent, Lesbian Bed Death. Do you know this band?
I know, but I think I have to.
They're very retro rock, inspired by horror.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and they're asking. Sorry.
What was their name? Sorry.
Lesbian Bed Death.
Lesbian Bed Death.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great band, and they're asking for donations from fans so that they can do a music video for a track. Now you could say, well, there'll be one side that always goes, well, he shouldn't need to be asking fans for that. We already give you enough. That's bullshit. We are fans. If we can help in any way, you always, and if you can afford it, because the thing is, it's all about whether or not you can afford it. If you can afford it, £1, £2, £5, £10, and so on, do it. And I think with Kickstarter and even a Patreon page, you might get next to no one signing up. But as the ball gets rolling, I think that's how you've got to start viewing things. And if it's funding a new album or an EP, I don't think it's dead, basically. But I can see why bands, particularly grassroots bands, are nervous because of the cost of studio time and the effort it involves, why you wouldn't need necessary. I don't think it's necessary anymore. I think if you're releasing regular EPs, say you do 2 a year. Yeah. But the problem with that is albums often have themes. If you want to say something over a certain amount of time and then you're going to split it out across 2 EPs, will that get confused? It's not for me to say. I have no music writing abilities. I simply listen to your shit and then write about it.
Brilliant. No, it's just interesting to hear. I've had this discussion with a lot of people across the board, and some people are very, very no, we need the album, and some people are thinking, well, the problem is most people now listen to things on a kind of on-demand service, so I will listen to that song and then that song and then that song, rather than starting at the beginning of the album and then just working their way through it. Do people want things that are more bite-sized now? It's like, here you go, here's a couple of tunes, and then 6 months then later, here's another couple of tunes, or it's like, bang, there you go, there's 12 songs. It's difficult.
It is. There's no right answer at this stage. It's very subjective, I still think. Right, guys, before we leave, one extra item you both get, one each, and it is a luxury item, something you feel you cannot live without. You get to take that.
Gibson Les Paul.
Oh, You'll be amazed how many guitar players actually don't turn around and choose their instrument because they go, well, I just can't really take that. So there you go.
Is that an acceptable answer? I thought you were going to turn around and say, oh, everybody says that.
No, most people start. Everyone that plays an instrument, even vocalists as well, go, oh, should I bring the equipment for it? Go, oh, well, I probably should. Like as if there's almost a guilt complex attached with it. But no, I mean, ultimately, I guess you think you're on a desert island, you can while away the hours learning, writing, and so on. You might, have to write it in the sand, but it's done.
I'll take that. My Gibson Les Paul, that'll do.
Is that your baby then? Yeah.
I think so. It's been around for so bloody long now that I'm like, thinking, oh well, it's just kind of part of me. I'm sure it'll get buried with me.
David.
I think I would probably have to go for my copies of Lord of the Rings, I think, because I just love, the books I've read them pretty much all my life since I was about tried to start reading them in primary 4 and realised it was a bit of a jump. But then I think as soon as I could, I've read them and I've just kept rereading. I just love them to bits. So I'd take them, and if I was to be even cheekier, I would probably take the extended, all the Lost Tales and The Hobbit and all that kind of stuff if I could. But if I couldn't, then those 3 books, I would definitely, that'd be my luxury item. I think I could reread them for eternity.
The token Lord of the Rings works. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, the fact is that you're sitting there, David. Behind you, you've got Aragorn's sword,
yeah,
right, and behind me, I've got Middle Earth.
I was literally going to ask before we left. I was going to say, right, before we do that, you have 2 items that keep catching my eyes because I don't recognise either. But now you've told me what they are: Aragorn's sword, and that's Middle Earth.
Yeah. So we don't really have. It needs to be Lord of the Rings now, doesn't it?
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to leave you now on this island. Enjoy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Take care. Stay safe.
Yeah. Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?